A guy got furious for no reason and berated a Walmart employee while he was wearing his work uniform. So I decided to pay his boss a visit tomorrow to discuss his employee's behavior. I went into my local Walmart tonight for a quick grocery trip to pick up some stuff I was low on. Quick in and out trip, 15 minutes at most. It's sad to say it didn't end up being a fast trip because I was stuck behind a boomer who wanted to cause a scene when I arrived at checkout. The guy in front of me was with his wife, who were arguing loudly about God knows what. They had a substantial amount of stuff on the belt, including a few large bottles of various alcohols. When the boomer scanned his way back to the bottles of alcohol, he froze and began searching around for an associate, who I presume he wanted to come and scan his ID. He froze and began searching around for an associate, who I presume he wanted to come and scan his ID. After a moment, an employee arrived, but there was still an issue. The problem was that he didn't scan any of the bottles. He just locked up and stared directly at a girl who was busy monitoring the self-checkout registers the next aisle over. After about 30 seconds of not scanning anything, he loudly shouted, "Excuse me," in his most condescending tone, followed by, "Can you come and scan my fucking ID, please?" His tactic worked, as the employee immediately whipped around and walked over. The boomer stood there with arms crossed, looking like everything was a giant inconvenience, still having not scanned a single bottle. When the young woman approached, he began to lay into her. It makes me real sick to see workers just standing around when they're on the clock doing nothing when people like me have schedules to keep. "Can you do your fucking job, please, and scan my ID?" "Excuse me?" she responded. "You fucking heard me. Get off your goddamn phone and scan my card so I can get the hell out of here." I noticed he was wearing a mechanic's onesie from a local tire company where the owner, John, is a family friend of mine. He still had his name tag on, which identified him as Eric. Eventually, he asked the cashier more politely to scan his ID, but she replied, "No, I don't think so. Not after how you've treated me. You can talk with my manager." She called for a manager on her walkie and walked toward the customer service counter. The boomer started hollering about how this was all bullshit and that he was just expressing his First Amendment rights. That's when I found my courage and decided to speak up. "Excuse me, but the First Amendment doesn't protect you from looking like a jerk to random strangers in Walmart when you treat other people like shit." He wheeled around and locked eyes with me. "What did you just say to me?" I smirked and said, "Oh, hard of hearing, are we? I'm pretty sure you heard what I said." The guy visibly shook on the spot. "This isn't any of your fucking business, so butt out," I replied. "I disagree. When I see someone acting like an a-hole for no good reason, I make it a point to speak up. You seem to think that by stating you have a First Amendment right, you can say whatever you want without consequence. But that isn't how it works. The First Amendment protects you from government overreach, not from the consequences of your words." He responded loudly, "That's beside the point. I'm sick and fucking tired of these minorities doing nothing and getting a paycheck for it," unaware that quite a few people were now staring. When the manager arrived, he claimed he'd scanned his alcohol and that the associate was very rude to him and refused to serve him because he was white. I quickly interjected, "Ma'am, that is not what happened. This gentleman didn't even scan any of his alcohol and immediately started shouting at your employee for no reason. He was rude, unpleasant, and even made unnecessary racial comments." He wheeled around and yelled, "Shut the fuck up and mind your business," before continuing his tirade. "You know, this is very unfair of you," I said. "You've put that poor girl in an unwinnable situation. Now her manager will have to speak with her even though she hasn't done anything wrong. Does that sound fair to you, Eric?" He looked puzzled at how I knew his name. "How would you feel if someone came into your place of business and told John a bunch of bullshit about how you were treating them unfairly? Or better yet, how would your boss react if he knew you were acting like this while still in uniform with his business plastered all over your chest?" When he heard me mention his boss's name, he stopped cold. "Yes, Eric, I know John very well and think I might visit him tomorrow." The manager rolled his eyes and waved me off. I scanned my groceries and paid for my merchandise, but I was smiling from ear to ear. Afterward, I made it a point to speak with the manager and the employee in the customer service center. As expected, the manager conversed with the employee about that customer, and she thanked me for speaking up. It'd be a cold day in hell before I let a boomer bully an employee and then weasel his way into a victim role with management. Not on my watch. So now my next play is to show up to this tire shop tomorrow. I hope Eric is there. I hope he's the opener. I'm going to walk in and just smile at him, ask to see his manager. Then I think I'm going to go in and just weave the nicest story about how he treated the employees at Walmart, so much so that I was compelled to stop in and tell his boss that he has a real winner on his hands and that I'm a customer for life now. Maybe that way he might get a message.